Okay. As you move down in the responses, you'll see things like property management of the portfolio. Again, each one of them has a different fee structure that's their approach to how they're going to handle that. And you can see the variability of that across the various proposals. You're also talking about perhaps additional fees that relate to whatever consulting services there may be over and above that. If, for example, a property needs remediation, they need to do some construction or some cleanup or what have you, those may come at additional costs. So you have to look carefully as you walk through the list.
Are extra to advertise.
Sure,
and to market.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Crazy.
Well, how does this process work, Mr. Noto, if you get in other words, if you get disparate proposals, can you go back and sort of ask them to bid on a more uniform basis?
Well, no. I mean, you did the RFP, which is really just the beginning of the process. And if you like what you can select them, it's not a bid, so there's not a low bidder type thing. And you can certainly negotiate with whomever you like in terms of the company you select, because this is not a bid. So it's not like you're committed to the rates, but it's also for a service. It's not a product that we're purchasing, so it's not a procurement issue. So I think what I think the board needs to sort of make a decision as to the direction they want to go, and then pick your top 2 or 3 and bring them in for interviews.
Right. And the other all right. And what about these auction houses? How do they work?
Well, there's 2 auction responses here. In essence, what happens is that there is at an auction, there would be a buyer's premium that would be attached to that property that would be paid by the buyer. And that's typically how these guys make their money.
Well, all
right, so you'll see one, Auctions International, for example, is talking about a 7% buyer's premium.
That's in addition to that's over and above the cost that the
whatever the bid is. If you bid $100,000 for the property, you're going to have to pay $107,000 for that property.
$7,000 goes to the auction house.
Exactly. So that's how they get their fee, and there's no real cost or obligation as it relates to the town.
Thanks, John.
These are the properties we own, right? And do we have the assessed value of these properties? Beautiful, thank you.
Bishop, we're looking at when we're looking at the companies that would manage properties. At the end of the day, the liability still sits with the town of Rye. It's not that the management property assumes any liability.
That's correct. That's correct. We will be responsible for those properties until we dispose of them.
Right.
All right, so all we're doing is we're doing due diligence in terms of trying to find a professional firm that would help us to manage those properties in a safe and effective way.
The properties that we have in our inventory now, are they secure?
To my knowledge, we have not done anything with the properties yet. I think we may be waiting on deeds for some of the properties, but we have physically not done anything to the properties.
Town Attorney Noto, do you have a suggestion with regards to securing the properties?
Well, at this point, we would be looking to some of these companies for guidance, but we'd have to start evicting people, and I don't know if the board wants to do that.
Properties?
Yeah.
Not all of them.
Some of them, yeah.
Some.
One of them is a commercial property. So I think I would want the board to make a decision on the direction they want to go. I mean, the sooner, well, let me put it this way, the board decides to auction them off, then the sooner they do that, the sooner the new owners will assume that responsibility and deal with the tenants and everything else. Because, some people may want to buy them with people in it. So, we start clearing out these properties, we have another issue, but there's no reason why we couldn't collect rent.
Oh, okay. So we got to, first of all, we got to find out always living in our houses.
Well, we've done that.
But exclusive,
Oh, sorry.
right? So we
No, we
did
haven't
that. So,
done
but yes and no. Exclusive
Okay.
of the properties. There are properties that we know where there are people are definitely habitating there, but there are properties where it's clear. So that there's no one there, and I think that as long as we have deed, that we need to possibly take some kind of inventory. When was the last time someone walked into this house? Make sure that the condition is that you can walk through it, that there isn't something that's in the residence or in the property that is, or maybe it's an unsafe condition. Possibly padlock the house and secure it from vandalism. I think that we need to protect our interests.
For those that are vacant, you should certainly do that.
Yeah.
And those that are not vacant, I think they've all had a visit from a member of the town staff. We can invite them to vacate, and some might not. If not, then we'd have to commence eviction proceedings.
I think the first thing is to establish which properties are occupied, which aren't. Then we need to find that for those properties that are occupied, who's in the homes, what they're doing there, and say, listen, the town now owns the property. We're going to be figuring out what to do to dispose of the property. Who are you? What are you doing here? How did you get here? Who are you paying rent to? If not,
If you're paying rent,
are
yeah.
you a squatter? And then I think once we get a report back to the board, I think we need, at the February 9th meeting, we need to make some decisions, but we're probably going to ultimately have to evict these people. If they're paying, but I presume these people, some of them are paying rent to somebody else.
No, don't assume that.
So what are they doing?
Nothing. They're living there, and
As squatters?
Well, no, they could be.
well,
paying
they could have
utilities.
been. First of all, one I know of was occupied by the owners, and they lost it in foreclosure, so they're just living there and not paying taxes.
Okay.
Other people, I think one house was an absentee owner. I think his ex-wife lives there, so I don't know. She's not paying any money. Other ones, I think some are occupied by tenants. I don't know if they're paying rent or not. One's a commercial building. Was very much aware of the foreclosure and had indicated they were going to pay and never did. So it's sort of a mixed bag. I mean, there's not one uniform approach to take, which is why I certainly recommend selling them as quickly as possible, because we're not in the real estate business. Nor do we want to be in the real estate business. I know you may disagree, and that's not up to me. It's up to your
That's why I
board.
want to have this initial discussion, and we'll find out when we meet these people.
Well, I
So,
think the
I
board
just
might
want-
want to be in a position to make a decision at the February 9th meeting, meaning you have vetted and interviewed and picked someone before the
Absolutely.
9th. Because
Yes.
that way, at the
Yes.
9th, you vote a resolution hiring a company with a plan, and then not waiting it beyond that. I mean, I think that's a good timeline, because you want to get this moving quickly.
Well, I guess my question to the board is, so you have $4.4 million in property here. And so if you auction this off and you sell it for, you're happy to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar?
I'd have to look at the proposals. I think you'd get 25 cents on
That's
the
what you
dollar.
think. I'm saying, but you said you want to get rid of them as soon as possible.
Well, I think it's-
I'm sorry. I want to stress test.
I'm not the responsible party here.
Well, you are a part of the responsible
Well,
team. And so my question, just a question
Right.
for the board, is how far do we want to stress test the desire to just unload these properties?
It needs to be
And I'm saying
reasonable.
we have a fiduciary responsibility to our constituents, where we have now $4.4 million in property. Are you going to just sell this building at 10 cents on the dollar?
We have
No.
a fiduciary to get it back on the tax roll so that we can collect taxes on it.
No. You have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize the value of every property that the town owns. You now own these properties.
Well, but we also have to manage them, and we're liable for them.
Well, liable. What is this liability? I mean, is everybody?
Well, if an oil tank leaks, it's our oil tank. If somebody falls in the property and gets hurt, we're the owner.
Well, what happens is that we have the same liability
Well,
in
Joe, I
this
think
building.
You absolutely do. You're right.
The question is, what do you mean by the words maximize the value?
Right.
What does that mean?
Okay. Well, but I guess my point is, what does a town attorney know to me when he says minimize the value? So I'm saying,
No,
if
I
you
want to
get
minimize
caught-
the exposure,
you
not
want-
minimize the value.
Yeah. To what agree. And so my point to you is if you get five, I just want to be clear, because I'm going to be on the other side of this transaction. If this board decides to